Chapter 1. She can feel it before you speak. You walk into the interaction already giving something away, and you don't even realize you're doing it. It's in how quickly your attention locks onto her, how your focus narrows, how everything else around you fades just a little too fast. You think it's interest, you tell yourself it's natural, but there's something underneath it that carries weight. That weight shows up in how you hold yourself, in how you look at her, in how present you become before she's even done anything to earn it. And she feels that immediately, long before you say a single word. You've had moments where you thought you were composed, where you felt like you were moving normally, saying the right things, keeping everything smooth. Then you look back at it, and something doesn't sit right. The interaction didn't land the way you expected. The energy didn't hold, and she didn't respond the way you thought she would. You try to trace it back to something you said, some line you could have delivered better, some moment you could have handled differently. But the shift didn't come from your words. It came from what you were already carrying into it. You're not just showing up to talk, you're showing up hoping. That hope sits behind everything, even when you think you're hiding it. It's in how you react to her responses, how quickly your mood adjusts based on her tone, how you lean into the interaction without noticing it. That leaning creates a kind of imbalance that doesn't need to be explained. It tells her where you stand before she's even decided where she stands. Here's the part that hits harder than you expect. She can tell you're already sold on her before she's shown you anything real. That alone changes how she sees you. It removes the need for her to invest because she already knows where you are. And when someone knows exactly where you stand too early, it makes it easier to place you in a category that doesn't require effort on her side. You've probably felt this happen without being able to explain it. You meet someone, things seem fine, then something shifts and you're suddenly trying to bring it back. You send a message, then another one, trying to recreate the moment where it felt good. That reaction comes from the same place, from already being invested before anything has been established. And that investment changes how you move in ways you don't catch in real time. You tell yourself you're just being interested, that you're showing up, that you're doing what you're supposed to do. But interest has a range, and you're operating at a level that doesn't match the situation yet. You're giving attention like something has already been built when it hasn't. That mismatch creates a feeling that something is off. Even if everything looks normal on the surface, there's a difference between noticing someone and locking in on them immediately. One keeps you present, the other pulls you into something before it exists. That pull changes how you carry yourself, how you respond, how you engage. It shows up in small ways, in your timing, your tone, your reactions. And those small shifts are enough to change how the entire interaction feels. You don't see it because you're inside of it. From your perspective, you're just engaging, just being yourself, just moving naturally. But from the outside, it looks like you're already trying to hold on to something. That perception changes everything because it tells her she doesn't have to work for your attention. And when attention comes without effort, it doesn't carry the same value. You've been trying to fix this by adjusting what you say, by thinking about how you come across, by trying to control the surface. The issue isn't on the surface. It's in what you bring into the interaction before anything happens. And until that changes, the outcome stays the same, no matter how polished your words are. If this feels like it's describing you a little too accurately, that's because you've been here before more times than you'd like to admit. Don't just watch this and move on like it didn't hit. Like the video and subscribe, because once you actually see what's happening here, you don't go back to moving the same way without noticing it. Chapter 2. You keep checking for signs that aren't meant to reassure you. You look at your phone more than you need to, and you know exactly why you're doing it. You tell yourself it's just a habit, just something you do without thinking, but there's always a reason behind it. You're checking to see if she replied, checking to see if she saw your message, checking to see if something changed. That pattern doesn't come from curiosity, it comes from needing confirmation that everything is still okay. And the more you check, the more your attention gets pulled into something that hasn't actually happened yet. There was a situation that made this obvious in a way that stuck. A guy had been talking to a girl for a few days, and things were moving normally at the start. Messages were consistent, replies came without delay, everything felt easy. Then her responses slowed down slightly, nothing extreme, just enough to be noticeable. He started checking his phone more often, rereading the last message, trying to figure out what changed. He didn't say anything about it directly, but his behavior shifted. He responded faster than he used to, added more to his messages, tried to keep the interaction active. His attention stayed on the conversation even when nothing was happening. Every time his phone lit up, his focus snapped back to it immediately. That pattern continued until the interaction felt like it was controlling his attention instead of the other way around. She didn't need to see him checking his phone to feel that shift. It showed up in how he responded, how quickly he engaged, how much of his attention was clearly invested. That investment wasn't balanced by what she was giving at that moment. It created a dynamic where he was waiting for something while she was just responding when she felt like it. And once that dynamic settles in, it becomes the standard for how things continue. You've been in that position, even if you didn't call it what it was. You felt the urge to check, to see if something changed, to make sure the interaction was still there. That urge pulls your attention into a loop where you're constantly looking for signs. Those signs don't give you what you're looking for, they just keep you engaged in the same pattern. And the more you stay in that pattern, the more it shapes how you behave. You start reading into small things, into timing, into tone, into details that don't carry the meaning you think they do. A delayed response feels like something. A short message feels like something. A change in rhythm feels like something. That interpretation affects how you respond next. It changes your tone, your timing, your level of engagement without you realizing it. That's where neediness starts showing up in ways you don't notice. It's not in what you say directly, it's in how you react to what you think is happening. Your behavior becomes tied to her responses instead of coming from where you actually are. That shift creates inconsistency in how you show up. And that inconsistency is what changes how she engages with you over time. You might think you're just paying attention, just being aware, just staying engaged. But your attention is being pulled instead of directed. There's a difference between noticing something and being controlled by it. When you're controlled by it, your responses lose their grounding. They become reactions instead of decisions. You can see this clearly when you look back at those interactions. The way you responded wasn't consistent with how you normally would. It was shaped by what you thought her responses meant. That shift happens gradually, one message at a time, until the entire interaction feels different. And once that happens, it becomes harder to bring it back to where it was. When you stop checking for signs, you start seeing what's actually there. You're no longer interpreting every detail, you're just observing the pattern as it unfolds. That gives you a clearer understanding of how she's engaging without trying to control it. And that clarity changes how you respond without needing to force anything. You've been looking for reassurance in places that were never meant to provide it, and that search is what's been pulling you out of position without you realizing it. Chapter 3. You're trying to cash out too early. You get a little bit of attention, and your mind immediately starts spending it. A good conversation, a bit of interest, a moment where she leans in, and you treat it like something has already been secured. You don't say it directly, but your behavior shifts in a way that assumes something is building. That shift happens fast, almost automatic, like you're trying to turn a moment into something more before it's had time to settle. And that's where you lose your position without realizing it. You've done this more times than you want to admit. The interaction starts feeling good, and instead of letting it stay there, you push it forward. You text more, you try to extend it, you add to it like you're trying to stretch the moment into something bigger. It feels like progress in your head. It feels like you're doing what you're supposed to do. But what you're actually doing is trying to collect on something that hasn't been established yet. She feels that shift immediately, even if she doesn't think about it. The interaction goes from something that was unfolding to something that feels like it's being advanced. That change creates pressure in a place where there wasn't any. It makes everything feel slightly more serious than it needs to be. And the moment it feels like it's being pushed forward, her engagement starts adjusting. Here's the line you need to sit with. You're trying to turn interest into certainty before it's ready. That alone is enough to change how she sees you. You stop being someone she's experiencing in real time, and you become someone who's trying to move things along. That difference doesn't need to be explained. It shows up in how you respond, how quickly you escalate, how you try to build on something that hasn't been built yet. And once that happens, the interaction loses its natural rhythm. You can see it clearly if you slow it down in your head. Think about the last time things felt like they were going well. There was a point where everything was just happening. No pressure, no direction, just flow. Then something in you decided it needed to go somewhere. That's when you leaned in, when you added more, when you tried to turn it into something, and that's when it started feeling different. You didn't lose her because nothing was there. You lost her because you treated it like something was already there. That shift matters more than anything you said. You're reacting to potential instead of reality. You're acting based on what you think it could become instead of what it actually is in that moment. That reaction pulls you out of position because it changes your behavior too early. It introduces intention where there should just be presence. And that intention carries weight she didn't ask for. She doesn't need you to build the moment for her. She needs to feel it develop without being rushed. The moment you try to accelerate it, it stops feeling natural. It feels like it's being directed instead of experienced. And that's where the disconnect starts, even if nothing obvious has happened yet. You've been trying to secure outcomes from moments that were never meant to guarantee anything. That's why things keep slipping the same way. It's not random. It's not bad luck. It's the timing of how you move. You don't need to do more when things feel good. You need to stop trying to collect from it. That's where the shift begins. Chapter 4. You react to her mood instead of staying in your own. She doesn't have to say anything for you to feel it. A slight delay, a shorter reply, a change in tone that most people wouldn't even notice, and something in you shifts immediately. Your attention tightens, your thoughts start moving faster, and your responses begin adjusting before you even realize it. You start matching her energy without thinking, trying to stay aligned with whatever she's giving in that moment, and that's where you lose control of how you show up. You've done this in conversations where everything felt fine 1 second, then something small changed, and you felt it instantly. You didn't pause, you didn't sit with it, you moved with it. If her energy dipped, yours followed. If she seemed distant, you tried to close that distance. That reaction feels natural, like you're just staying in sync. But what you're actually doing is letting her mood dictate your behavior in real time. That shift changes how you come across in a way that's easy to feel. Your tone starts moving with hers. Your pace adjusts. Your responses lose their consistency. You're no longer grounded in how you normally communicate. You're adapting moment by moment, trying to stay aligned with something that isn't stable. And that instability shows up in how the interaction feels from her side. Here's what you need to sit with. She can feel when your behavior depends on her energy. That alone changes how she sees you. You become predictable in a different way, not because she knows what you'll say, but because she knows your state is tied to hers. That creates a dynamic where she holds more control over how the interaction feels. And once that dynamic is there, it becomes the baseline for how things continue. You might think you're just being attentive, just reading the room, just responding appropriately. But there's a difference between awareness and dependency. When your behavior shifts based on every small change, It shows that your position isn't stable. It shows that you're reacting instead of deciding. And that difference carries more weight than anything you say. You've probably felt this when you look back at conversations where things faded. There were moments where you adjusted without thinking, where your responses didn't come from where you actually were. They came from what you thought was happening on her side. That pattern builds over time, shaping the entire interaction without you noticing it in the moment. She doesn't need to analyze it to respond to it. She feels the inconsistency, the subtle changes, the way your presence shifts with hers. That feeling makes it easier for her to disengage because the interaction doesn't feel grounded. It feels like it's moving based on something that changes constantly. You don't control her mood, and you don't need to. What changes everything is how you respond to it. When your behavior stays consistent regardless of what she's giving, the interaction holds its shape. It doesn't swing back and forth based on small shifts. It stays where you are, not where she moves it. That consistency creates a different kind of presence. It shows that your behavior isn't tied to external changes. It shows that you're not being pulled into reactions. And that difference becomes noticeable over time because it doesn't fluctuate. You've been adjusting yourself to stay aligned with her moment by moment. That's what's been pulling you out of position without you realizing it. Chapter 5. You stopped treating her like the prize. You placed her at the center before she earned that position, and everything started orbiting around that decision. Your attention, your time, your focus all began adjusting in ways that made her feel more important than the situation actually called for. It wasn't something you said out loud. It showed up in how you prioritized the interaction. You made space for her before she made space for you, and that imbalance shaped everything that followed. You've done this without noticing how early it happens. You meet her, you like what you see, and your attention locks in immediately. From that point forward, your behavior starts aligning around her presence. You respond faster. You think about what to say more carefully. You give more of your time than you would in any other situation. It feels like interest, but it carries more weight than that. She can feel that shift without needing to analyze it. The interaction starts to feel like she's being elevated in a way that doesn't match what she's given. That elevation removes the need for her to invest at the same level. It creates a dynamic where she can stay where she is while you move closer. And once that pattern sets in, it becomes the standard for how things continue. Here's the part that changes everything. The moment you treat her like the prize, you stop acting like one. That shift is immediate, even if you don't see it. You begin measuring your behavior based on how she responds. You adjust your tone, your timing, your level of engagement depending on what you're getting back. That adjustment creates a version of you that's shaped by her presence instead of grounded in your own. And that version is what she interacts with moving forward. You can see it in how your decisions start revolving around her. Plans change, priorities shift, attention gets redirected. Those changes might feel small individually, but together they create a pattern. That pattern shows where your value is placed. And when your value is placed outside of yourself, it affects how you're perceived. She doesn't need to think about this consciously. She feels it in how you move, in how you respond, in how your presence changes when she's involved. That feeling shapes how she engages with you. It determines how much effort she puts in, how much attention she gives, how she positions herself in the interaction. You've probably experienced the opposite without realizing why it felt different. Being around someone who doesn't shift their entire focus toward you, who doesn't change their behavior based on your presence, who moves the same way regardless. That kind of presence carries weight because it doesn't depend on external validation. It feels grounded in a way that doesn't need to be explained. When you operate from that place, everything changes without needing to force it. Your attention becomes something that's given, not something that's already committed. Your time holds its structure, your behavior stays consistent, your decisions come from where you are instead of where you're trying to be. That shift removes the imbalance that's been there from the start. You don't need to chase attention when your presence doesn't depend on receiving it. That's what changes how she responds. It creates a dynamic where engagement builds naturally instead of being driven, and that difference becomes clear over time without needing to be explained. If this connects with how you've been moving, say something below that reflects it. Share this with someone who's been stuck in the same patterns without seeing them clearly. And subscribe if you want more of this, because once you understand it, your behavior changes without needing constant effort. That's where the shift happens, in how you place value and how you move based on it. And once you see it clearly, it changes everything that comes after.